So we are towards the end of our program. I'm going to invite Greg Beck up in a moment to close for you, but I wanted to just leave you with a few thoughts. We've talked a lot today about giving you the tools to be integrators, and they're very important. And now you have more of them thanks to Greg and Tricia and the team than you've ever had before. But I wanted to speak to you about one other trait that you will need if you're truly going to make this a part of your careers in development going forward, and that's courage. I think when Maya Angelou was asked what is the greatest virtue of all, she said it was courage, because to exercise all the other virtues consistently, you need to be courageous. And if you are going to chart the rest of your career as an integrator, you will need courage. There are many vested interests at stake, and many people who are at the top of their organisations now who've built their careers on a siloed approach, and they will hold fast to that model. But as I look out on the audience today, I see many people in it who are maybe 5, 10 years away from running those organisations. So you are the future leaders of the development organisations, the development world. So the extent to which you can shape the future of those organisations will depend on what you do over the next 2 to 3 years. So if you can transform the way you work as individuals and become an integrator, embracing all of the values and skills we've talked about today, and transform your organisations from within, get as many of your colleagues to become integrators, reach out to other organisations and work with them as if there's no dividing line, you will push up, and over time you will transform the entire development sector. I feel very optimistic about that. The energy in the room when you're at your working session shows there's a deep affinity, and I'm sure you're representative of your peers as well, a deep affinity for integration. It feels right. And you know, I think the younger our generations are, the more it feels right. If you looked at the Twitter feed, Twitter of course trends young, a lot of the young development professionals, I read out one, integration feels right. And I think it's because of the way they grow up with technology. Integration, connection is wired into their brains in a way it is not wired into ours. So I'm incredibly optimistic, but you will still need courage. Take comfort in the network we're building, draw strength from each other. And on that note, I want to also acknowledge the courageous leadership of FHI 360, Patrick Fine, but Greg, you and your team, you have really taken on an issue that is difficult and challenging, and you haven't let it go. You're 2 years in, but I get the feeling there's probably another decade left in FHI 360's leadership. So Greg, with that acknowledgement, I'm very, very honoured to hand over to you to take us out today.
Thank you, Leith, and thank you, Susan. Susan's been inspiring me with her keen insights and wisdom for many years, and I think she did it again today. So thank you very much, Susan. I'm going to keep this short. You guys have been great. You've stuck through the entire day, and as my cross-country coach would say, you've got intestinal fortitude. So I would actually like to invite up someone that you're now very familiar with up on the stage, Tricia Petruney, my partner in crime.
That's right.
So, Tricia, we've had a great day.
Yes.
Amazing conversations, very substantive dialogue. I think we've learned a lot of different tools that are out there amongst our sister agencies, processes, different thinking. Mm-hmm. What are you taking away? Like what today caught you by surprise? What inspired you? What are you going to leave here with today, remembering about on the conversation and the Integrated Development Summit?
Sure. So I'm assuming that you probably want maybe one answer, but I'm going to give you 3.
I'm shocked.
I didn't think that would probably surprise you, but I think as most of you have understood from the way the day has unfolded, my job at FHI 360 is to really learn about integration. So I spend all day, every day doing that. I eat, breathe, and sleep integration. So I was really sort of buoyed by the conversations today, where I heard a lot of conversations that we have internally echoing around and hearing people come at it from different perspectives than we have. And I thought, and I was jotting down all these side conversations like, I can talk to that person about this thing. But I think 3 main themes to me stood out as being inspiring, because what I get really excited about is what I don't know. So there were 3 things today where I kept, the themes that kept coming up that I thought, I really don't know what we can do about that. And so what I want to do is leave today, talk to some smart people in this room and figure those out. So the first one was actually something Susan brought up about earmarks. I heard it come up in a lot of different conversations as something, I heard someone say it's distracting, and other people talk about it as it's a barrier. And I really do want to dig into that issue, because from where I sit, I don't necessarily see it as this closed door system where an earmark means you can't do something a certain way. I think earmarks are good. They protect funds to get to the goals that we want to achieve. They set targets. They give us a specific focus. There's nothing wrong with that. I think where in integrated development lens, what we want is a little bit of room to be flexible in how we get there. So if an earmark is about girls' education and that's what the money is for, is to improve girls' education, I think that's fine. If it's not written in there in the fine print to say, no, you absolutely cannot do economic strengthening to get there, I don't think that's the case. So I think we need to be a little bit more aggressive and push the envelope when we're talking about how earmarks affect integration and flexibility. And flexibility is actually the second one. So it was another thing Susan and a couple other speakers brought up. Something I'm not sure how to deal with yet, and I want to leave today thinking about and asking other folks about, is the sort of dissonance between what we need to be flexible. I think we've heard that the collaborative learning and adaptation system from USAID can facilitate integration because it lets you be responsive. You don't have to be prescriptive and say, we're going to do this over 5 years. You see a need for something and you can do it. We need that in integration. I fully believe that. I think that's the path forward. We need to be more responsive and adaptive. At the same time, this morning we heard that a lot of decision makers are asking us for the most rigorous evidence possible.
Right.
So to get that highest level of evidence for impact, you need to have certain designs, and those designs do not necessarily mesh with a program that changes. Ari said this morning, when you change your program for the better, your M&E people go nuts, and that's true. I actually heard a horror story recently where a program learned maybe a year or two after they started that they heard from the community that they needed to be doing something a little bit differently, and they fully agreed. But they had an external evaluation team who had already designed the impact evaluation, done the baseline collection, and said, if you change that program now, this is kaput. We can't do our evaluation. You cannot change that program. And the donor agreed. So I think that is truly bananas. That is the opposite of how we're supposed to be doing development. So I think that there's a real need to talk about that, to say when we do need rigorous evidence, what are we going to do to get that? If we want to be flexible, that's okay. So I feel like they're not mutually exclusive, but there's champions and detractors, I think, on both sides. So what I would love to do is try to have a conversation with both of those groups to see how we can reconcile those two things. So that came up for me today.
Okay, that's 2.
And then the third one, the third one is just that this is about people. Like, I feel like sometimes we shortcut how we talk about things, like, oh, if we just had that new innovation or invention or that new technology or a better design, everything would be better. But at the same time, I kept hearing about empathy and trust and change and all of these things that are very human, and it's about behavior and how we think and we act differently. So another group of folks I think maybe we could tap as part of this community are the change management professionals, to just address the human nature side of, if we're really going to do development differently and change, have a paradigm shift in our development architecture, we're going to steer the ship differently, that's a massive undertaking, and it has a lot to do with how we approach things. So I would love to talk to some change management folks to say, can you please help us figure this out? So those were 3 things that came up for me today that I don't quite understand and that I'm actually really excited to learn about, and I think will keep me pretty busy.
Terrific. Good.
Yeah. What about you? You've been here all day with us. I've seen you listening and jotting things down. And
I have been jotting.
We've been chatting, so I'm curious to know, and I bet everyone in the room wants to know, as someone else whose full-time job it is to advance integration and explore this new development approach, what are you coming away with from today? What excited you or inspired you?
All right, well, you had 3.
Yeah.
I'm going to take 4.
Oh, okay.
But there might be a little bit shorter, so
his
hang in there.
prerogative.
So these are the 4 quotes that captured me throughout the day. Integrate when it matters, and remember who we serve. And that goes to, for me, also, is empathy. right? And human-centered design, and remembering why we are here and why we're doing these jobs that all of us love to do. So that struck me. The next one was, poverty is multidimensional, and so shouldn't our approaches mirror that reality? Third, and you might recognize this one, context is king.
I said
Sound
that.
familiar? Yeah, all right. And then lastly, knowing how change happens is just as important as knowing whether there is change. So those are the four that really captured me, and I think those are the things that I'll take away today. But you know, this is a frustration that I have, or a concern, or a challenge I always have after these really terrific, positive, constructive gatherings, whether it's a one-day, three-day conference. How do we keep this going? How do we keep the ripples in the pond radiating out? Because I don't know about you guys, but when I go home from a conference like this, I go back to the office and I'm already now a day into the email hole.
We already are right now.
Right, exactly.
So we're here all day.
Right. 2 days later, I've sort of pretty much forgotten most of what's going on by the end of the week. Well, we're moving on and planning for the next conference. So I'm wondering, how do we keep the ripples on the pond going after this day? And I'm trying to think, what are you thinking about at the end of the day? What's a commitment that you can make to keep the energy going forward from our conversations today?
That for me is totally easy. I am taking Ben's RCTs, just like the young lady in the back said earlier that we can try to do as a group. That is actually what I'm going to commit to do, to try to figure out the three sort of quandaries I just described. I think that that is going to take a lot of people from different disciplines that don't necessarily already know each other to create some connective tissue and really have real conversations. So I think after today, I'm really going to think about 3 to 5 people here that are not in my usual circle, that I haven't spoken to before, and we're not going to just talk about things we both already know. And I'm going to ask them to meet for a random coffee trial.
Good. I like that.
So
I'm going to make a commitment.
you have to do something
if
I have to do something.
I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to commit individually to actually, we learned a lot today. And one of the outputs that we were hoping for was to get inspiration for the next round of tools. And I think we found it today. So I'm committing to now delegating to Tricia to create an entire new set of tools by the time we meet next on the summit. And I'm also committed to, we've started recently what we're calling the Integrators Network. And so now we have 55 staff within FHI 360 that are well versed in our tools and our thinking around integration. And so I commit to ensuring that thing takes off and is really successful. So for me, that's what I'm committing today. Those are my little ripples on the pond.
Awesome.
I'm wondering if we could just close now, if anyone wants to be brave.
Courageous.
And stand up, courageous, yes, as we talked about courage, and perhaps make a commitment to one small actionable change that you can take on over the next couple of weeks or months or even the year when we get back together again. Is there something that struck you today that you feel like you can run with it? And I think we moved forward on the RCTs, so I think that was really positive. Is there anything else that any of you can make a commitment to pushing forward?
See wheels turning.
Please.
Hello, everyone.
Can you use the microphone?
Yes.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I commit to getting back to Nigeria on Sunday and having a brown bag interaction with the country office in Nigeria on things, very critical things that I have learned. And incidentally, the next week is the week where we're working on FY17 work plan. And so it would be critical to include an integrated approach to that work plan for the next 2 years.
Terrific.
So I commit to having that brown bag.
All right, great.
That's very practical. I love
Nice.
it.
I'll be giving you a call soon.
Yeah. Call
Thank
us.
you. Anybody else prepared, ready?
Yeah, hi. So I'm a technical advisor at my organization, International Rescue Committee. I wanted to quickly share a quick story that sort of ties into this. I was recently talking to someone working in Belgrade, managing the European response, and he had actually been in Belgrade in the early 90s during the war there. And he had taken a flyer on some small local CSOs, and 20 years later they were probably more effective and had more institutional memory and more responsive to the crisis than we were currently, and much more so than they were 20 years ago. And I think that encouraging, and this is something that I commit to, is encouraging the country offices that I work with to take a flyer on some of these smaller stakeholders and organizations that work locally on the ground, even if it fails, because I think the failure, it just pales in comparison to the reward that could happen much later down the line.
Terrific.
Love
Fantastic.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. Lisa.
Hi, Lisa McGregor-Mirgani from USAID. I commit to following up with Neil Levine, sitting next to me, from the DRG Center, and Susan Reichley, about how to better coordinate all the different integration efforts that are going on in our agency.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks, Lisa.
Like that one. Christian?
Yes. Christian,
sorry.
please.
Just one simple commitment, and you know which one is going to be. 11 members of LOCUS have worked for the past more than 1 year to develop a research agenda, a community of practice, a website, and I'm making a commitment in the name of the 11 members that have worked to make it happen, because it has to become a reality beyond this meeting for a community if we want integrated approach to development to become reality in our development approach.
Terrific. Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Christian. Appreciate it. All right, well, thank you all. You've been amazing. I just do have one more order of business. I would like to ask my team to come up here that did this incredible job. They've been planning this for well over a year. And so I just wanted to recognize Jillian Gaynair, Lori Goldhammer, Asmita Savani. Could you please come up on the stage for a second? Caitlin Carroll.
Get up here.
Tessa Ainer. Wendy Wigley.
And Maxon?
Art Carlson. Come on up, you guys.
Hi.
This is an amazing team. And I also want to take this opportunity to close out the evening by giving our first Integrators Champion Award to our friend and our colleague and our inspiration, Leith Greenslade. Would you please come up to the stage, please?
Come on. Yes. Oh, she took a minute.
Leith has been an inspiration to us from the very beginning. I can remember our first conversations with her, and we knew from the very beginning that we were not going to let her get very far away from us. So, Leith, thank you so much for your inspiration, for your support, and for everything you gave for us today. We'd like to give you our first Integrators Champion Award. Thank you.
Thank you so much.